I'm very interested in technology and using it for storytelling. I'm not trained as a 3D artist or an animator. I come from a filmmaking background. I often call Unreal Engine like a cinematography simulator. I can practice lighting and also just camera language, camera storytelling. I saw the demo for Metahuman Animator, and that was a light bulb moment for sure. That's the hardest part right there. It becomes way easier to make stuff in Unreal Engine than in real life. You're able to do stuff so much quicker that you become a better storyteller. One of the benefits of Unreal Engine is that you can create larger than life scale. Your creativity will just go bananas.
It's really great to see when someone comes from a traditional filmmaking background and how they approach storytelling in, the 3D world.
If you're already a good filmmaker in real life, you will be a good one in Unreal Engine too.
Hey Charlie.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hey, nice to meet you.
Welcome to the VFX Process.
Thank you.
And thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the show, so thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Charlie, can we just start off with an introduction? Tell us who you are and what you do, and a brief insight to your background and where you come from.
Sure. I'm Charlie Driscoll. I run the Darkest Age YouTube channel, which is all about filmmaking in Unreal Engine. I'm not trained as a 3D artist or an animator. I come from, a filmmaking background. I have a small production company that makes commercials and documentary content, other branded content. I've been doing that for 17 years, I guess, at this point. And I got into Unreal Engine probably in 2017 in Unreal Engine 4, but in terms of getting into the actual filmmaking aspect of it, really only started, once Unreal Engine 5 came out. I would say I started in 2022. And that's kind of been where my journey has taken me, is into the metahuman motion capture filmmaking aspect of Unreal Engine. And I've just started posting it on YouTube and trying to share my journey and knowledge, I guess. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's really great to see when someone comes from a traditional filmmaking background with skill sets of cinematography and things like that, and how they approach storytelling in the 3D world in Unreal Engine or softwares. Can you just tell us what it was like to transition, and why and when your curiosity to pick up that tool and step into that 3D world to enhance your storytelling potentially? Can you just tell us about that decision and how that came about?
Yeah, absolutely. I first downloaded Unreal Engine in 2017, and I actually wanted to make games. That's also been a huge interest of mine throughout my whole life. I got bit by the VR bug big time in 2018, and I got way down a rabbit hole of designing a VR game. I worked on it for like 2 years, and it was a multiplayer shooter. I mean, it was just hard mode for trying to develop a game for a first time thing. And I ended up not releasing it. That kind of put my Unreal Engine learning on pause for a good 2 years. And then when Unreal Engine 5 was announced, I was really drawn back in. And I was seeing other YouTubers at the time, like JS Films, I think is, he's been on your show, hasn't he?
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, what he was doing at the time with like the accent suits, and that really made something kind of click with me. I was like, okay, maybe this can be used as, a storytelling tool. So I got an Xsense, a Winda, and started doing motion capture with Metahumans, and it was so janky. It looked so bad. The big thing at the time was like facial animation was really hard. I was using like a GoPro and this software called Faceware, and it was like okay, but it took a lot of extra work and sort of knowledge of how the curves worked and so on to really make it expressive and compelling.
Why didn't you just put a mask on them, or a gas mask, Charlie? Like
that, of course, was where I was going, right? I saw that film Irradiation.
Sava.
It's Sava, yeah.
We've had him on the show as well.
Incredible.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of his. I was gonna do, like a stormtrooper thing or something like that, but I don't know, just kind of fell out of it. I wasn't entirely sure. I saw the demo for Metahuman Animator, and that really was a light bulb moment for sure. That's the hardest part right there, is the face animation. And to see just how easy it was and how good it could be, that's enough to drive a whole performance of a character. It's good enough.
Would you consider yourself a technical person or just like a curious person to like, I want to just find out how this works? Or
I wouldn't say I'm like very technical, although I certainly am very interested in technology and using it for storytelling. So, anytime I see a new tool, I kind of have shiny object syndrome. I'm I totally want to use that. Yeah. And like anything from, Unreal Engine or 3D to even AI stuff. And I've tinkered with everything.
With your background of traditional filmmaking and doing things in the real world, what was it like the first time that you stepped into, Unreal Engine, and did you take traditional skill sets and like test them out, lights, cameras? What was it like in comparison to a real set?
It's incredible. When you're on set, you have a camera and you can move it around, but it's still heavy or it can be heavy. You can't exactly put it into high up places really easily. Of course, then the lighting is a whole thing on its own. Just to move and set up a single light can take a while. And to be able to just like throw in lighting and see it work in real time with Lumen was unbelievable. I think like the first time I just put like a white cube right next to a character and saw like the bounce off of that. I was like, it blew my mind, or like Sava shows a shot where he's flying around and he finds like the reflection of the character in a puddle. I mean, so the fact that you could do that in Unreal Engine was incredible. And interestingly, I saw Unreal Engine 5 as like a tool for me to practice for real life. I was like, I can practice lighting, two characters in this situation. I can kind of figure out where a light can go, and also just camera language, camera storytelling, because it's so easy to change the lens, add some movement, so on. Because it's so easy, I can do that super fast. And I'm basically describing previs, but I was
going to say, it's, does that lend itself and learning and taking it onto set? I guess that's a great kind of toolkit to have,
Yep. And I've started to use Unreal Engine for previs, for commercials, especially. Yeah. I mean, it's invaluable, especially, if you're dealing with really, strict time limits like 30 seconds and you need to fit a lot in there. You really want to know exactly how those shots are going to cut together. And I have a video on my channel that I made back in November that shows me using it for previs specifically on a short film. And I used like Polycam to scan the house location that we were going to be in. And then I actually I did all the performances beforehand and basically shot the whole movie, right here in this room, cut the entire thing and had it down shot for shot, cut for cut. Yeah. And it was nice because we only had a day to shoot this film, and it was ambitious, and so we had a lot of shots, and I was able to get, I can't remember how many, 50, 70 shots in a day. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Nothing shows what you're thinking better than a previs like what I made, because I made it basically, I'm like, we're going to make this exactly, we're going to do exactly this. And everyone's like, awesome, cool.
And it's a really great way to just, like you say, get everybody on the same page and just everybody understanding.
As I was saying, the learning curve to Unreal Engine is steep at first, especially if you've never done, anything in like a 3D program or anything. But once you get past a certain sort of hump, then it becomes way easier to make stuff in Unreal Engine than in real life. You're able to do stuff so much quicker that you become a better storyteller just by nature of being able to iterate so quickly.
I'd love to jump into one of your projects on your YouTube channel, which is the fight sequence. It's just a really fun, great kind of project that when we saw it, 'cause I think you posted it fairly recently.
Yeah, like 3 weeks ago or something like that. Yeah.
Explain that project, how it came about, why it came about.
The whole concept was based around the fact that fight scene animation pack existed. It stuck out to me because I hadn't actually seen a lot of animation packs like that out there, where you have actual paired animations. You have two skeletons and they're interacting for more than just like a single move or something. There was actual choreography extended for 5 or 10 seconds, and it was really good. It was really high quality. And I wanted to practice a fight scene, like just shooting a fight scene, because I just haven't filmed many in real life. And so I was like, oh, that's perfect. I can kind of line those up and just practice shots. Yeah. And then like the story and setting, I literally just like, I was like, I can't really think of anything where two guys would like square off like this and fight. And so it kind of ended up with this like kung fu sort of fantasy vibe, I guess. And the script is just written to accommodate that.
No, yeah. It's great fun. I got Mortal Kombat vibes like when I was seeing it, you know, it's like a Mortal Kombat video game cinematic. You know, what you've just said is you evolve the story around the animation pack as a self-practice. Like, I want to learn how to shoot a fight sequence. Let's build something around that.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, you bring up a really good point. That is something I do for almost all of my videos, all my Unreal Engine videos. This is, I think, actually kind of important that I communicate. Like, I'm looking for assets that I think are cool and that work together, and then I'm like making the video kind of fit those tools or those assets. It's kind of like real filmmaking, right? Where, you know, I go and find a location, right? I go to Fab and I browse for a location. You know, I'm finding clothing that works on metahumans. Sometimes I pay someone on Upwork to make them for me or convert something to a metahuman. But a lot of times I'm going with what's actually available, and that will inspire the actual scene. Another sort of side of that coin is like kind of framing out the janky bits. That is really important. The animations, I think I'm able to get them to look good, but that's because I'm like moving the camera around looking for the right angle. Like I'm using like my cinematographer's eye that helps. I'm really trying to find the way to make the movement look the best. So I might sacrifice a certain shot because the animation just doesn't look good when it's framed that way. And I have to figure out something else. But I guess that's kind of the same in real life too. You know, you can't just throw a camera up and expect it to look good. You really have to kind of, you know, get in there, a lot of times move it around. And that's what's nice about Unreal Engine. It's very easy to move it, and the actor's staying perfectly still and so on. But it does take some finesse and kind of finding the most like flattering angle, I guess, for it to work.
Yeah, it's like having that intention, like that shot needs purpose, it needs intention.
Absolutely.
And what's great about Unreal is you can just reset the timeline. They will do the same thing again, repeat and repeat and repeat, and refine and hone your skills.
Totally. I actually, it's funny you say that, because I often call Unreal Engine like a cinematography simulator. It really feels like somewhere between playing a video game and like editing, I guess. Yeah, it's very liberating and fun.
Can we just dive into, maybe some things that you found along the way? Issues? Was it as smooth as you imagined when you first got into it? What was the process like in itself?
Yeah, this is a project that should have gone really smoothly and should have taken me just maybe a couple days. And because I kind of added a few more factors to it, it made it a little more difficult and ended up taking me roughly 2 weeks, I would say. One main factor that kind of compounded the difficulty, and it was I wanted to dub the entire thing into Chinese. And this is because I'd had this idea for a while of taking Unreal Engine's audio to lip sync feature, which is built into Metahuman Animator and will animate the mouth movements just off of an audio file. And I'd seen 11 labs where it can take someone's audio delivery and just convert it into another language.
The Forbidden Scrolls warned of this power's price.
荆棘卷轴仅高过这种力量的代价。
And I wanted to retain the performance for the rest of my face and just have like my mouth speaking Chinese. So yeah, I used the audio to lip sync feature and then like took the keyframes from the mouth from that animation and just pasted it onto the face animation that I recorded while doing it. It worked like okay.
And was there any like more refinements on top of that you needed to do?
No, I didn't do any like other adjustments on top of that. Maybe it probably would have looked better if I had, but like just doing that process was tedious enough. There are so many bones in the face rig that you have to go and select so many tracks of keyframes. I don't know how many, but then they're not like perfectly lined up. So I have to go and find like lips, and then like skip the eyebrow. And then, so like I have to go and select all of those, find the line, delete the keyframes, go to the other one, copy them over. And
it's one of them when you open up a world of pain, when you go, but I'm going to get through it. As long as it takes, I'm just going to get it done. I've started now.
Yeah, exactly. The other challenge I would say is just kind of figuring out a way to line up my animations with the animation pack. So I use Move Pro, which is the multicam solution from Move AI. Yeah, all that animation was done using that. And then the actual combat is from the pack. And so, if you take the animations from the pack, they start out, kind of the characters in a certain position, and then they go and they fight, and then they end in a certain position. And so I had to figure out which animations I wanted to use. And then like, oh, this guy gets knocked down in this animation. He might get up and then go into this stance. But I'm like, okay, that's a good part where he falls, where I can like start my animation like on the ground. That was a little tricky. It was to find points like that. Once I did that, I didn't do any like blending of the animations or anything like that. I wasn't blending them. I would just cut away or kind of like whip the camera or something to kind of add a little transition or something like that. And it worked, I think so.
Which is almost, I imagine, is similar to being on set with a stunt double and then just cutting back to the actual actor. You get thrown off a building. If you're Jackie Chan, you get thrown off a building. But, a stunt double cut into the actor, essentially.
That's a perfect example. I haven't actually worked with a lot of on-set stunt doubles that were then matched to another actor. But yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, but that's a really good point. Yeah.
But in the metahuman world, much safer.
Much safer. Yeah.
Much safer.
No liability issues in the metahuman world.
So the Move AI side, what was that like to kind of smash out MOCAP compared to the Accent stuff?
I really like the camera-based motion capture a lot, and there's a few key reasons why. In theory, it's easier. It definitely took me a while to figure out how to get this calibrated properly. No shade to Move AI, but like, quite frankly, their documentation isn't as thorough as it could be. They're actually really supportive, and like were listening. They were like replying to all my emails that I was asking about, but it did kind of take my own sort of trial and error. Interestingly, the reason I got into using this setup was because it was actually the best way I could see to have two actors motion captured at the same time and like interacting with each other. If you're using suits, well, first you need two suits, and these suits are expensive, but they're inertial suits, assuming you're using something like Rococo or Xsense. And so it might capture the movements in really high quality, but it doesn't have any idea where the suits are in relation to each other in space. And so there's going to be some drift over time because they're just inertial, they're IMUs. And there are ways around this. Xsense has a way to use like Vive tracker pucks with their system. But again, now you're like integrating a whole other tracking system, and it's like, it just gets complicated really quickly. But with the cameras encircling the entire space, it can see where the actors are. And sure, it's not always perfectly accurate. There can still be some discrepancies, but generally it's going to get that sort of spatial positioning way, way better. I really like it. I think it's like the future of performance capture.
Exciting, man. Yeah, we've used that on a big project before, and I think we were capturing like 4 or 5 people at once.
Wow. That's awesome.
I think we had I think it was 4 or 5 iPhones. And I think you can now use like GoPros and even more.
Yeah, I use 6 GoPro 10s.
Oh, wicked.
There's advantages to using the iPhones because they can actually connect to the internet, and they like the app is really streamlined for it. So it'll clip your clips and sync them all and upload them all for you. The GoPros are technically a little higher quality, or like you have a little more control over it, but I have to dump each camera, and then I have to go and manually like sync everything up, and that's a big downside. I think Move could figure something out to make that a little more streamlined.
It's a process.
Yeah, and there's one of the downsides to doing it this way is you have to upload the footage and wait for it to process, and that takes a while. That takes a few hours depending on certain things. And so whereas with the suits, you're literally seeing it in real time, going right into Unreal Engine, and even if they're doing like a processing layer on top of that, it's much faster, and so you do have that feedback, which is an advantage. But there's definitely real time camera based solutions out there that I've seen, and I will definitely be testing.
So I guess as a virtual filmmaker, if you had a tool belt, like an Unreal Engine 5 beginner's tool belt with you've got your marketplace, you've got Fab, you've got this place for motion capture, what kind of toolkit would be the starter pack for somebody new to Unreal Engine filmmaking?
I mean, this is basically what my whole channel is dedicated to, is finding these tools and kind of figuring out what the right ones are for, if you're a complete beginner and maybe you have very little or no budget, maybe you have a few $1,000s to spend on some other solutions. So I would say if you are extremely low budget or if you're just wanting to try it out without investing a lot of money up front, Move One, the single camera solution from Move Pro, is actually pretty good, and it's relatively cheap. It used to be that you needed an iPhone or Apple device to do it, but now they have a web-based app that can work with any camera. There's also QuickMagic AI, which is another sort of single camera solution. There's actually a bunch of single camera solutions. So 2 cameras of any kind, one for the body capture and then one for the face capture. I highly recommend using an iPhone. I think 12 is the minimum to use it with Metahuman Animator. You can find them used for maybe like $200-$300 or something. Although you can use an Android phone, and there are now plugins that you can do. And I've done a video on this, but I would recommend an iPhone because comparing them, I've seen it better results with the iPhone, and it's just easier. Yeah, any camera for the body capture. It could be an Android phone, just a webcam, ideally something that can shoot 60 frames per second. And then, of course, a head rig of some kind to hold your iPhone in front of your face. So there's a couple solutions out there. I show how to make a DIY one out of a skateboard helmet.
Oh, great.
There's a company called facemotioncapture.com that I am affiliated with. I don't know if I can say that, but
you can't go for it.
Yeah, they're awesome. They reached out to me and sent me a head rig, and it's like $100 head rig. But then I do also really like the Rococo head rig, which, do you want me to grab it? It's like right over here. 1 second.
Go for it.
I brought my collection with me.
The toys.
This is the DIY one. You can see it's just a skateboard helmet with a weight and some GoPro parts.
Nice.
This is the one from facemotioncapture.com. It's literally...
It looks like a modified baseball hat.
Yeah, or like a football
helmet.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but this works really well. It's got a counterweight. Yeah, I really like that one a lot. This one's my favorite, but it is more expensive. This one's like $300.
That's the Rococo one. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the Rococo one.
That looks very lightweight.
It's very lightweight and adjustable, and all of these are adjustable, but yeah. And then it's, just lightweight and just works. So, but that's, $300 to do the same thing as the other ones. So depending on your budget.
I wanted to know your advice for creators who have ideas in their head, but they just struggle to maybe get started.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely have that problem too. Quite frankly, I use AI to help with that. I will use Claude, Sonnet, or ChatGPT is like okay, and I kind of just brainstorm with it, and I'll kind of like explain my idea to it, and it'll give me something back. It's usually really bad, and I think it's totally okay to use those tools to help fill the gaps. It's always hard to start a project though, honestly. Even for me, I have to kind of like psych myself up to jump into the motion capture, for example.
But what is it in general that makes you extra excited to start a particular project? Is there anything in particular?
I don't know. I can make kind of the movies or projects I've always wanted to since I was a kid, since I wanted to be a filmmaker. And, I kind of ended up in a more like advertising commercial world in my real life filmmaking, which, like, don't get me wrong, it's a great gig and I actually really love doing it a lot. But like I love like Lord of the Rings as a kid, and Star Wars and stuff like that, and certain settings and scenarios that I wouldn't that are just way too difficult to do in real life. I don't know. It's like once like that you get a camera set up and you get something framed up and you can see it right there. That's enough to kind of get me going, So it's like a video game combined with filmmaking. Your creativity will just go bananas. It's so fun.
Well, that is a good segue in time to just touch on the zombie horde. What was it like to display and show and shoot all those zombies in real time running? That must have been pretty cool, right?
It was incredible. I mean, and it's interesting you bring that one up. That video I feel like is a little bit different than my other ones because I didn't use like metahumans, for example. Almost all of my stuff uses metahumans, but I've been trying to figure out how to visualize large crowds, either for a concert or a gathering or a protest or a battle, all of these things that you might need lots of people for. I couldn't figure out how to do it. Like there weren't a lot of great tutorials on doing exactly that. It looks like it's really easy to do in Blender. I don't know, just the tools they have to like multiply and procedurally animate like a bunch of people. It seems easier. Unreal Engine, it also just didn't quite click how that like you could use a particle simulation to do that. Like I'd heard that was how you do it, but I was like, I don't get it. Like what I use for fire is for crowd. That doesn't make sense to me. Of course, it's just like it's a procedural tool of sorts. It's almost like a mini Houdini or something like that. And so once I kind of like started to learn more about Niagara and kind of learn how these crowd simulations were actually done, I saw this tutorial by Code Like Me, and he had like this swarm of rats. And that combined with this other tutorial that showed how to make static meshes animated through their material instances. So you could, it would be way more performant than skeletal meshes. Anyway, I was like, this is perfect for a zombie horde. And that's because zombies can kind of just be like running in a crazy fashion and like it looks really good. And so that was kind of what led me to do zombies. Also, I also love zombies too. I'm a big fan of like, 28 Days Later, for example, and The Walking Dead. Again, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on there too. For example, some of the shots of like zombies running through the city, I don't know what it is about that, but like the collisions on the ground are really inconsistent. So you'll see like zombies are like up to their waist, concrete, like running in a lot of shots. And, so what do? I just shake the camera enough or kind of like
put some smoke,
kind of like add some movement, like frame it in a way that you can't quite focus on it, and yeah, that was kind of what led to that project. Finding those kind of combination of those tutorials, like a zombie horde stampeding was kind of like the simplest thing I think that made sense. But of course, it could be used for many things, and I plan to use that for a lot of different things in the near future.
Brilliant, man. I mean, you've got a really great breakdown and tutorial, I believe, on that setup that you did for that. So if you want to find out more, anybody that's watching or listening, go check that out on Charlie's channel because, yeah, it's super fun. And cutting corners, I guess, as a filmmaker, you've mentioned a few of them, like where you can, if something's a bit janky, just crop in or tell the story in a different way. Any tips and bits of advice for filmmakers to kind of, cut corners and not get too overwhelmed in doing it the right way or, achieving the best result when there's alternative methods?
That would definitely be my advice is don't be afraid to cut corners. A lot of times I think what makes my stuff, I want to say, better than it really is because I quite simply, if something is janky, then I try not to show it. I mean, and there's still a lot of janky stuff that makes it in, but I guess just over time, you'll kind of develop the taste or kind of like you'll be able to see what you can get away with and what you can't. And, that's just practice. And the nice thing about Unreal Engine is you can practice endlessly, really. All of the storytelling and filmmaking principles that apply to regular movies or regular filmmaking apply to Unreal Engine. If you study just storytelling or cinematography in general, or if you're already a good cameraman or camera person or filmmaker in real life, you will be a good one in Unreal Engine too, once you get past that learning curve. So, I think all 3D artists in general should know, the basics of how a camera works, right? Like your lenses, aperture, shutter speed, sensor size, depth of field, those things. If you can learn that, they're pretty simple, and just how those affect the image, then that will go a long way, and that directly translates into Unreal Engine.
And for those who, let's say, have no experience on set, for example, let's say they're 3D artists, for example, and they want to tell a story, they've been making models and they want to bring them to life. What kind of crash course would you give somebody with no experience?
That's a really good question. And I do want to make a video for basic cinematography principles for complete beginners who've never done it in real life either.
It's just interesting, isn't it? Because it
is very interesting.
I guess there's so many people that are like maybe put off by Unreal Engine and think, well, I hear people saying it's great to have experience with real cameras, but I just can't afford one. I've never had the chance to play with one. Maybe it's don't be afraid and just experiment. I don't know.
Well, definitely that. And also don't be afraid to post and show stuff. I've put off posting and showing stuff for so long. And, to get that feedback, it might end up being better feedback than you think, Like I said, the basics of how a camera works is not that hard to get your head around. But it just takes a little bit of time. And then once you watch that and start applying it directly in Unreal Engine, you'll figure out really quickly what affects what. Yeah, the taste thing just takes time. I hate to say it. There's no real.
No, it's right. You're absolutely right.
I don't think there's like a fast track to that, or rather, the fast track is to use Unreal Engine because you can actually do it so quickly. You can iterate so fast.
So, talking to the indie filmmaker, they've got a project in mind. They've started it. Can you give any advice for how you push through any creative fatigues and technical roadblocks? Some people might just think, I'm gonna stop or start a new project. How do you push through to complete something?
That is a great question. And I am probably not the best person to ask because I constantly jump ship or pivot, I should say. But definitely keep the scale or scope of your project as small as possible for starters. It's hard because I think one of the benefits of Unreal Engine is that you can create larger than life scale. You can create armies or, stuff in space or something like that. You can totally do that, but keep it short, maybe start with things that are just maybe like a minute or two long. A lot of my stuff started as a test and I just polished it just enough to make it something that could kind of be a short film. Really, if you go on my channel and you go to the first video that's there, that is literally a test that I did. And I'm saying the speech from Braveheart because I had it memorized. I didn't even have a script or anything. I needed a performance to practice with.
They may take our lives, but they will never take our freedom.
Likewise, the stuff with the orcs, I was just testing out some stuff with the characters and I just kind of took it a little bit step further. I'm I'll make a little sequence. I'll add a little bit of interaction between the characters. The whole film is less than a minute long. YouTube was also kind of a good thing for me because it kind of forces me to post stuff. Some of the best advice I heard about posting on YouTube is don't be a perfectionist. Getting to that 90% of the way there is a lot of times is more than enough. There's definitely a time and a place for that, but if you're just starting out, I think it's better to release stuff and move on. And in my case, having a place to post it and show to other people, which I think is also important, just as any artist in general, to post your stuff, that also helped as well.
No, that great advice. I've got the follow-on question for that piece was, it's easy to get caught up in making things look perfect. And how do you ensure that the story remains the focus? Like you said, that 90% mark, pull a pin in it. If you're going to get it 100%, when is that 100%? You could spend months more on it, refining. Is the rain interacting right with the floor? The easy rain that you put into your fight sequence, drag and drop, it looks cool, move on.
But yeah, if you're just practicing, get it out there.
Charlie, we like to just dissect your approach and mindset in just balancing work, life.
That's an ongoing skill and project for sure. So I'm married, and that helps a lot in that my wife makes me, spend time with her.
Yeah, I know the thing. Like, peel yourself away from that screen.
It's so bad. Like, if she's out of town, I'm like in front of my computer literally all day. I try and stay active and exercise, and that's something that I started doing, years ago, and that's just helped a lot. Like, to just make sure I'm staying active and healthy when I spend so much time, sitting down. It also just helps with real life filmmaking too. The more in shape you are is going to help with just your endurance on set, being able to lift and carry heavy things. So I find that to help a lot. And then I just have a really amazing like live work situation. I have like an apartment upstairs and then like a studio downstairs.
Nice.
So that is amazing for me.
Some people think that these artists and people like yourself just get stuff done and it's really easy, but there's a life that's involved. There's partners, there's people, there's real life situations.
I've heard a lot of people be like, "Oh, I don't believe in work-life balance. You're either all in or you're not, right?" And again, like that can work for some people. I've totally done that for extended periods of time. But it's also it is an ongoing process. You kind of just have to work at it and experiment with it,
For sure, man. For sure. It's been a great conversation, Charlie. Really appreciate your time. Can you reiterate where people can find you, your socials, if people want to find out more?
I'm really just on YouTube. It's the channel's called The Darkest Age, Unreal Engine Filmmaking. That has everything that we've talked about here today on it. And if you want to talk to me more directly, there's a Discord, and you'll find a link to that in any of my videos descriptions. And that's really the best way to get a hold of me. If you're interested in like other filmmaking and stuff, my production company is called Northwoods Revolution. So northwoodsrevolution.com. You can see my commercial stuff there and contact me through that website. So yeah.
Amazing. That's great. And somebody actually referred to you, Charlie, on the YouTube comments as the Unreal Engine GOAT.
That is insane.
That's great.
And
that's pretty cool. Which we already was eyeing you up before that anyway, Charlie.
Oh my gosh. That's incredibly flattering. And I would say hopefully that can be inspiration for people, because literally like go to my first video on my channel. It's only 8 months old. Like you can chart the exact evolution of my Unreal Engine skills, like, from there. Yeah. And so, just get started and, you might be the GOAT in 8 months. Who knows?
Yeah, Charlie, is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we sign off?
Yeah. I mean, I love your channel. I love this show. And I think it's like super helpful for other artists and any, other filmmakers to have these kinds of long form discussions. And you talk to like a really great variety of people with very different backgrounds. And so, yeah, I'm just like, I'm honored to be a part of that.
Thanks,
and hopefully other people will find it useful. So, yeah.
Oh, that's very kind. Thanks, Charlie. Really appreciate that. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. And we'll catch up soon. Really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.